Hi guys, I'm Tom, and today we're going to explore who Knull is. He's one of the most fascinating, powerful, and downright terrifying characters in the Marvel Comics universe. We'll soon see him in the movie Venom 3, The Last Dance. Knull, also known as the god of the symbiotes, is actually an ancient deity of darkness and the creator of the symbiotes, or the Clintar species, to which Venom, Carnage, and all the other symbiotes we've seen in the comics belong. Moreover, he is an incredibly powerful being, capable of defeating a celestial with relative ease. In this video, I'll dive deep into Knull's story and origins as depicted in Marvel's Venom comics. I'll also talk about his physical appearance, what we know about his personality and behavior, and I'll detail his incredible powers and abilities, as well as the few known weaknesses he has. Well, without further ado, let's get started. Knull is an ancient, primordial deity who existed even before the universe itself was created. In the comics, we're told that in the beginning, there was only darkness and nothing else, and it was in that void where Knull existed. He was the king of the Great Abyss, a place full of darkness from which he was born, being the embodiment of the primordial darkness that had always existed. Originally, Knull was dormant, slumbering peacefully in the void, and therefore not a threat to anyone. However, everything changed when the Celestials were born and began creating the universe. According to Knull, these gods created the universe within his realm, which they called space. This space was like the outer void, but without planets or stars. Just infinite darkness. Knull didn't like that the Celestials were transforming his domain into something different. While we might think he was throwing a tantrum because these gods altered his reality, that wasn't the case. In the comics, Knull explains that his abyss was neither dead nor empty. The infinity of his domain didn't belong to the Celestials for them to modify or reshape as they pleased. According to him, the void breathes, the abyss has teeth, and the shadow only believes in light to grow bigger. While delivering this speech, Knull creates a living sword from his shadow, a partially organic and extremely powerful weapon. With this sword, he decapitates one of the Celestials, killing it instantly and demonstrating his power by defeating one of these entities so easily. This act of rebellion occurred because the Celestials wanted to recruit him to be the King of Darkness, the supreme guardian and cosmic caretaker of the new universe. Knull refused their offer and used his living sword to demonstrate his strength. This enraged the other Celestials, who decided to exile him to the void. However, this exile proved to be a grave mistake, as the void allowed Knull to thrive, growing even more powerful and ruthless. In this environment, Knull used the head of the Celestial he had killed and transformed it into a kind of cosmic forge, channeling all his energy and power into his living sword. This sword eventually became the Necrosword. Furthermore, it was during this period that Knull began creating the origins of the symbiote race, as his Necrosword served as the prototype for these creatures. He mentions that back then he wasn't as skilled, so his earliest creations, such as the proto-symbiote, were unrefined, imperfect, and dirty. Knull says that his creation carries all the same weaknesses because they bear the scars of their progenitor's birth within them. For this reason, they still fear the cosmic fire of his workshop or forge, as well as the incessant, disorienting sound of the Celestial's hammer, which struck his will and transformed it into something different, something that would only serve him. What Knull says here is very interesting, as it gives us a precise explanation for why symbiotes have those peculiar weaknesses, such as sound frequencies and fire, which can harm them. Knull attempts to destroy the divine light that had invaded his realm of darkness, and in doing so, he manifests his first symbiotic suit or armor, formed from the living darkness he already controlled and that surrounded him. With this, he quickly embarks on a campaign to eliminate all other powerful beings, whom he calls the Other Gods. Knull was successful in his early missions, as he managed to kill many of his enemies. Rumors about his feats spread rapidly across the cosmos, both among ordinary beings and the Celestials themselves, who referred to Knull's living sword as the All-Black, the Necrosword, or the God-slaying sword. It is said that Knull and his sword together cut the throat of creation. This terrified the Celestials and other divine beings in the Marvel Universe, who began to fear him. However, unfortunately for Knull, he was eventually defeated and stripped of his sword. But Knull was not one to surrender easily. He decided to seek out the creation of another special weapon, and thus discovered something fascinating he hadn't considered before: the possibility of combining his living darkness, or his living abyss, with the living beings and creatures created by the Celestials. This discovery led him to realize that by merging his abyss with lesser creatures, he could manifest and control new forms, as if they were vessels or puppets of himself. According to Knull, this primordial moment of symbiosis, in those desert lands where he had been left, was the true beginning of it all and the birth of his masterpiece. It was there that Knull created a horde of symbiotes, which he completely controlled, as he himself was the hive mind behind them all. It is said that Knull could control these symbiotes, which bore a spiral mark on their heads and had no eyes. Through them, he could observe everything around them, even across entire galaxies. However, when a very powerful dragon-like creature, created from many symbiotes and controlled by Knull, arrived on Earth to sow chaos and destruction, it was devastatingly defeated by Thor. This event severed the psychic connection between Knull and the symbiotes. This marked what Knull considers the beginning of the end. Upon losing the connection to his hive mind, the symbiotes began to seek out different hosts to bond with in order to survive, as they were lost. Unfortunately for Knull, the various hosts infected the symbiotes with light and everything that was the opposite of him. For this reason, the symbiotes began to adopt ideas of nobility, honor, and doing what was right, based on what their hosts considered fair and good. It's important to note that this didn't just affect the symbiotes that bonded with benevolent hosts. Since all symbiotes were connected through the hive mind, the infection slowly spread among them. Knull described this infection as something toxic, his own venom. This led the symbiotes to rebel against their creator. Millions of symbiotes, now outside Knull's control, multiplied uncontrollably and consumed the abyss he had created, drowning him in his own darkness and leaving him imprisoned within it. Although for many years all fans of Spider-Man symbiotes and Marvel assumed that the planet Clintar was the symbiotes' homeworld, in the more modern Knull comics, we learn that this is not entirely the case. In reality, the planet Clintar, as we know it, is actually a massive prison, because in the ancient language of the symbiotes, Clintar means cage. The core of this planet is formed by millions of symbiotes joined together, keeping Knull trapped and immobilized. This planet, in essence, is a gigantic amalgamation of ancient symbiotes who chose to free themselves from their creator's control and do what they saw as right and good instead of blindly obeying Knull and his sinister commands. It's fascinating to see how, once the symbiotes' psychic connection to their creator Knull was severed, they began to align with the light, feeling shame for their dark and sinister origins. Before, they were essentially monsters acting as extensions of Knull. This is why the symbiotes of Clintar invented and perpetuated a lie, that their species was naturally good and that they shared a common origin, like other alien species. The symbiotes born afterward truly believed this lie, even though it was far from reality. Now that we've covered Knull's story and origin in the Marvel Comics, I want to talk about this villain's physical appearance, what we know about his personality and behavior, and explain his incredible abilities and known weaknesses. Knull has an iconic, memorable, and highly intimidating physical appearance. While he resembles a slender human, he is very tall, standing at approximately 2.7 meters, about 9 feet, and weighing around 285 kilograms, about 630 pounds. This makes him an imposing figure, much larger than any Earth superhero or other humanoid heroes. His body is covered in a special black symbiotic armor that looks like metallic alloy, particularly on his shoulders, chest, and legs. His arms are also covered by this armor, though they curiously appear wrapped in black cloth or bandages, which is actually the living darkness that envelopes him. In the center of his armor, Knull has a special red symbol. Although many fans have assumed it to be an extraterrestrial spider, that's not the case. The symbol is actually a dragon, a creature Knull frequently used to bring destruction to the planets he invaded. He liked to combine symbiotes to form cosmic dragons, which were imposing and devastating. Interestingly, the symbol Venom carries on his chest is a combination of Knull's dragon and Spider-Man's spider symbol. Knull's skin is completely white, giving him a spectral and terrifying appearance. His face is one of his most striking and memorable features, with a large, pointed nose, a prominent jaw, and sharp teeth. His eyes are bulging and red, sometimes with black pupils, and he has long, grayish-white hair. He always carries his necrosword, a red and black weapon with an organic design, similar to the symbiotes. These physical characteristics make Knull one of Marvel's most terrifying and imposing villains, embodying cosmic darkness and the abyss. Knull is not a neutral entity. He is a malevolent being who represents the cosmic void. He despises the Celestials' creations and seeks to destroy everything they have made, including the Celestials themselves. His campaign to eradicate life in the universe is legendary. Knull delights in chaos, destruction, and bloodshed, finding twisted amusement in it. He is arrogant and sadistic, considering himself superior and inevitable in his goal of destruction. Despite his evil nature, Knull shows some respect in the comics. For example, when Eddie Brock tries to stop him to protect Venom, Knull is impressed by Eddie's determination. However, he still sees himself as invincible and despises the symbiote's betrayal. Regarding his powers, Knull possesses almost limitless abilities. His superhuman physiology grants him strength, resilience, and durability far beyond that of any known being. He is nearly immortal, having existed for over 13.7 billion years since before the universe was created. He can be injured or temporarily incapacitated, but he regenerates quickly. Additionally, he requires no sustenance, rest, or sleep. He has umbrakinesis, allowing him to create, control, and manipulate darkness, as well as cosmic matter and energy. With these abilities, he created the symbiotes and his necrosword. He can also teleport across the multiverse and send his consciousness through time. His cosmic awareness enables him to know what is happening across the universe and multiverse. Knull's only true weakness is light, a metaphysical force that represents everything opposite to him: life, honor, and nobility. This light weakens and destabilizes him, and it was what separated him from the symbiotes when Thor attacked with his energy. In conclusion, Knull is one of Marvel's most epic villains. Despite being relatively recent, introduced in late 2018, he has expanded the mythology of the symbiotes and possesses a fascinating design and backstory. His first appearance, brutally killing a Celestial, left an indelible impression. His simple yet impactful design and connection to cosmic horror make him a unique antagonist. Hopefully we'll get to see him in Venom 3, even if it's just an introduction, and that he's as epic as Thanos in the MCU. What do you think about Knull? Did you already know his story and origins? Which of his abilities do you find most terrifying and why? Leave your answers in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss more content. Thank you for your support